Good Monday morning, everyone. I know I probably sound nasally. We're just going to have to deal with it, okay? Kids have started back at school, which means moms get sick, okay? That's how we're rolling. But you guys are listening to Author Talk with me, Aimee, Russell, and Valerie right now. Hopefully, Stephen will join us a little bit later, hopefully. But, we're going to dive into our weekend. So I will kick it off. And I have photos this time. So if you follow me on social media, I don't post photos of my kids a whole lot. And so if you want to see about my daughter's birthday, which was on Saturday, her actual birthday was yesterday. I'm going to show you some photos that I did not post for you guys to kind of see, hence why I am probably also sick. So my youngest turned 4 yesterday. So she wanted a rainbow and unicorn birthday party. And so we had rainbow balloons, unicorn everywhere. She had galore of dresses on top of this was on her actual birthday. So I mean, she's thoroughly excited about her birthday party. So that is what I did all weekend, on top of the fact that last week when we all talked and got together and had our little chitter chats, you guys know that my daughter has been waking up in the middle of the night. Therefore, I'm getting maybe 4 to 5 hours of sleep. And so hence why I probably have a cold. I've been run down a little bit. And I don't know who gets a cold in August when it's 105 out here in Texas, but I am currently battling a cold. So if I sound
actually, I've heard a lot of people are sick right now. And even have COVID. And I was like, how can this be? And allergies are already just rearing up. We got all of it, all of it.
I'm telling you, allergies and everything, it's awful sometimes, So I'm hoping it's allergies. I did feel like a bus hit me yesterday, so I was very unproductive yesterday, and I just watched The Nanny all day, which I love that show. I grew up on that show. I love that show. But we're, hang in there or check on me on social media because Josh also is out of town all week. I am sick and I'm pulling double duty with schools and all this kinds of stuff. So make sure that I make it to the end of the week alive and my cold is not worse than it is at the moment. But I'm sure and I hope that you guys have better weekends than I do, though I don't know what's better than a rainbow unicorn party. Okay, because it was pretty banging. We had a lot of fun. We had a rainbow sprinkler or a unicorn sprinkler. We had a big water balloon fight. Sandy came because my kids call her Grandma Sandy. Dina Ray, which you guys know, she's been on the show before. She does all of our cover designs. She did Russell's book.
She's brilliant.
Right? And so she came and everything. So it was just a really fun celebration of times and with my 4-year-old. So what all did you guys do this weekend? I'm dying to know. So who wants to go first?
You go, Valerie.
Let me see. What did I do? Not a whole lot. I did a bunch of yard work because I have to get rid of it, and all these roses that died from a disease. All my roses are dead. I'm really, really sad about that. And then to make up for it,
roses in Texas, you're supposed to spray them. That's the black dot disease. It's a fungus.
It's something called rosette, and it's a mite, and it infected all my
well, you're supposed to spray
roses.
them like every month.
It was awful. Well, what happened is when they get distressed and they get these like weird thorns that look like something out of a fairy tale. They're very evil looking. But anyway, so I made up for it by going to brunch yesterday and having some cocktails and fun stuff like that down in Rice Village. So that made, and I just got my copy of the book Find Your Happy Place that we talked about last week. So I was just browsing through this about how to, be happy all the time. So.
Nice. Oh, I like the cover of it. That's a nice looking cover.
Yeah, it's really nice. Look how cute that is. I mean, if that doesn't make you think of like vacation, all the good stuff.
I love it. All right, Mr. Russell, hold on. All right, I'm ready.
Looks like Steven's trying to get on.
I know. I'm waiting for his camera to pop on. But in the meantime, tell us about your weekend.
Okay, I have a couple of stories I want to tell you from when I was overseas. The first one is when I was in Rome.
Okay.
It was very hot and very crowded. We had it was an afternoon, and we walked out of the Vatican because uh, their Egyptian museum is incredible because the Westerners stole so much from the greeting, Stephen. So much from the from Egypt. So it's an incredible museum. And then we spent about 45 minutes in the Sistine Chapel. So it was incredible. But afterwards, we walked we walked across because we were going to this the Hyatt Regency, and it was quite a walk, and it was very hot. So we decided to turn into this little coffee shop and get a little water and cool off. And we went in and we sat down, and there was this old couple sitting next to us, and we got our cappuccino Frodo, which is a cold cappuccino. It's a thing over there. And I have to. There's a big truck trying to come up the hill, so there might be some noise. So the the old man started making comments to me, and as you know, I'm kind of a smart aleck, so we started making comments back and forth. And before you knew it, we were talking about the museums we'd been to in Paris and what was our favorite paintings. And we went on and on. It turns out this guy was Norm Zamchak. Norm Zamchak is a famous songwriter that performed with the Allman Brothers and wrote songs for a bunch of famous singers. And yeah, now put his picture up.
Okay, I was about to ask you, is this the photo? Because I'm waiting anxiously. Okay.
So this is Norm Zamchak at some award ceremony. He did not look this good after he had been walking in Rome in the afternoon, and he needed water too. And we talked for more than an hour about what we thought and what we were doing, and an incredible conversation. And when we left, my wife said, "You found your older double," because we were so much alike. So that was real pleasant. My next story is, while we were on the ship, I went and had a cigar one night, and I was between these two guys, and it turns out one was from Australia. He was crazy. Okay. And it turns out he was a water ski racer. I didn't even know there was such a thing, and I didn't really believe him until I went back and checked it on YouTube. And he'd once crashed at 86 miles an hour. That means falling on water that's like concrete at 86 miles an hour. And that's a thing in Australia, and you can watch it on YouTube. It's insane. These people are going more than 100 miles an hour water skiing. And it's not a race, and they're being pulled by speedboats. It's insane. And the other guy on the other side of me, while we were having a cigar, was an F1 engine engineer. He designed F1 racing engines.
Nice.
And that was crazy. So
I feel like both of those people were just like kindred spirits almost. Need for speed.
Yeah, they were crazy. But the water ski guy was way beyond, because you have to be that way. Anyway, so those were three of the very interesting people I met in the Mediterranean. And I'm very excited about our author today. I hope he can get on. Yes. I do have a couple of questions. I have to move for just a second because of a truck.
Okay, well, that's fine. We can tolerate you muted. It's okay. No big deal.
Okay.
Welcome back.
So,
but I do have a quick question, Russell. Did this guy that was the speed water skier, I guess, do they wear helmets?
Yeah.
Yes. They look like MotoGP motorcycle riders, with they have all their gear, and they have huge big helmets, because if and when they fall, and they race on rivers. They don't race on lakes where it's level and you don't have to turn. They race up and down rivers that curve. It's insane.
That's intense. That's
Yes.
I don't know.
And
The times I've water skied, it's you can go really fast and just you can bounce a lot and everything. So I can't imagine like speed water skiing. That's even more crazy, like you said.
yes, it is. I want to thank the people that are listening to us on our podcast.
Yes.
Most people listen to us during the week while they're working out or driving home. That's why our show is about 45 minutes. It's the time of an average workout. I could not find it for a long time till Aimee changed everything. Now even I can find it. Aimee, where can people find us on our podcast?
Well, where can people in Russell find us? So you can find us anywhere that you can find a podcast. So my go-to is Amazon, Spotify, Google, Apple. If you have an iPhone, right? Apple, Good Pods, and there's other ones out there. All you're going to do is hit podcast, type in AuthorTalk, look for the crimson, red, and gold logo, and that will be all of our shows. That you will have all of our shows from the 8 years will be uploaded on there. We are top 10 independent book podcast, which we are, and currently just holding that title, but we embrace it and are very humbled by that title. If you want to see us, we do a live show over on our social media platforms and over on YouTube. You can come and hang out with us. Russell always likes to poke fun at one of us, and I usually am the one that he pokes fun at. So my facial expressions are quite animated. I generally talk a lot with my hands, but I do control what comes out of my mouth. Okay, so if you ever just want to come over and have a good laugh,
There are times you don't control what comes out of your mouth that much.
And this
There's
is
times.
a segment. Yes, and Amy's pissed off segment. That's where I don't control what comes out of my mouth sometimes.
Are we having one of those segments today?
I don't know. Let's see if my head is
No,
cleared
because
up by the end of
she
the
figured
show.
out carpool. She told me she figured out the carpool.
I did figure that. That was a beast, but we could talk about that in my segment. But no, so if you want to come over and have a laugh with us or at us, we generally laugh at and with ourselves. So you can come on over and hang out with us on our social media channels, engage with us while we are live. But like Russell said, most people listen to us during their commutes or their workouts. So make sure that you just come and drop us a comment or like our page. We like to interact and hang out with you guys. So is it Steven or Stefan? I don't know if
He's muted.
He doesn't hear you.
Can't hear me.
No. Steven, unmute yourself.
Yay! Hey, can others hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you.
Well, I can see Valerie. I can't see Aimee or Russell, and I'm so sorry about this connectivity issue. I was just on a video call this morning, so I'm not sure what it is, but...
Oh, it's okay. Technology and Monday mornings don't always
and now I'm not hearing anybody.
Oh, no. Let me see. Let me get you some answers, Stephen.
Do people ever call in? I could use my phone. Is that call in?
Sometimes you have to. We've occasionally about once a year had it. So if you have to, Stephen, do it.
Okay, maybe I will, because I'm plugged into the Ethernet, and I was just on a video call. I see Valerie, and I hear you, Russell.
I will always be patient for Longhorns. So shift over.
Okay, yeah. Okay, Valerie can see and hear me. I just can't see Aimee. It just has a scrolling thing.
Oh, man. That's okay. I don't know if I'm word speed. I'm pretty sick today.
Okay, join the link on your phone with Google Chrome. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I will do that.
Okay. We may even have there. Okay, he did cut off. Sometimes we've had 5 pictures on when they've had to do that.
I love it. It just goes to the nature that, sometimes when you listen to podcasts, sometimes they're all like picturesque and perfect. And to me, those are so boring. I'd rather have real life occurrences and issues and problems. It makes it more fun to listen to for me.
Well, this is exactly. And this is why now that I'm doing podcasts all the time, I'm the wacko one. And I know that Nikki thinks I'm a wacko because if I don't get the link until the last second, I freak out. And if I can't get on before so I can make sure I don't have technological issues, I freak out because I always expect there to be a problem. And the 4 or 5 times I've had big problems.
Well, yeah.
If it makes you feel any better. Yeah, I've had issues with Zoom lately. they can't hear me. I can't do. I don't even know. I was on the computer yesterday trying to figure out like every time I join a Zoom meeting, they can't hear or see me, and I'm like, I can host a meeting, but I can't join a meeting. So I'm in the chat. So I was like, okay.
Man, you guys want to hear something crazy for authors? Because
What?
I
Yeah,
experienced.
give us your pissed off time now.
Well, it's not really pissed
Yeah.
off time, but it's one of those things. So you know how we all have a love-hate relationship with Amazon as authors, right? And Amazon does really well, and then they do really bad in X, Y, and Z, right? Well, this past week I had a bunch of promotions running on the 20th, right? They always go smooth sailing, fantastic. I have many heart attacks throughout the day, and then it all plays in my favor, right? So it's like 9, 10 o'clock at night. None of my rankings have moved, none of my downloads, nothing, right? So I'm over here contacting all my people. I'm like, hey, what the hell's going on? What's happening? You know, we should have X, Y, and Z. Why don't we have that? All this stuff. Well, come to find out, Amazon glitched 2 weeks ago. It had this huge problem where it wasn't seeing anyone's rankings, it wasn't converting anyone's downloads, wasn't doing any of that, right? Lo and behold, it happened again. So it's happening every like 2 weeks, this Amazon glitch. And so just be on the lookout for when you are setting up your book promotions that it might happen, and it may not happen on the day, but it could happen on the day that your book comes out, right? So Amazon is having problems with their ranking and their downloads, converting their downloads numbers for you on the back end and everything. So that was Aimee's mini heart attack last week. That probably fed to why I'm sick today. Like, let's just be honest. I thrive in high stress environments. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things. Hey, Steven. Is it Steven or Stefan?
Hey, it's Steven. And yeah, no, I'm okay. Amazon issues. Yeah. And I was having internet issues, but I'm doing a lot better now. So this is good. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. You know,
Good
it
to
wouldn't
see
be a
you.
Monday morning if we didn't have internet connection issues or technology
Right.
issues. It would
Yeah.
not be Monday. You know, it just it would not at all. Well, Steven, what did you do this weekend?
Oh, let's see. Well, I'm on the book tour right now. So I was just in DC as part of the book tour, and it was at it's called Arizona State University has the DC Center, and so it was some college students who had read the book, and also a professor, and then I got to do some sightseeing. I haven't been in DC since probably high school, and so I saw like the White House and the National Archive. It was so much fun. So yeah.
Oh, nice. And Russell keeps letting me know. So did you go to Texas University? Are you Longhorn?
I am, yeah, and I know that's why you said you're patient with me because I'm a Longhorn, but I did a business program, kind of a part-time MBA there, and so I was in Austin for a while, which was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Russell went there, so he is very patient for his fellow Longhorns.
Good, good. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to be on, and this will be fun. Actually, I can see everybody, so this is perfect. Yeah, yeah.
We're excited to have you. I don't know if you're going to be excited about where I live, but I will tell you because it galls Russell's soul as much as it does mine. So I went to a branch of UT. I went to a smaller branch, the UTSA, which is the San Antonio branch of UT. But I live up here in Aggieville. I live in College Station. I am a fish out of water, but I am a Longhorn fan. So I'm very excited that they will be playing each other again, and I will be wearing my burnt orange. Okay, so I am a team. I am a Longhorn at heart. So
good.
That way, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun this football season. But Valerie, let's get Steven talking about his book, and he's got a book tour he's doing. So Steven, let's get you talking.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, if nothing else, you're among fellow Texans, so we're all, we're all on that same, speed here. Also, so I was just looking over your bio, and wow, just all over the place with so many great experiences. Can you tell me how you went into the writing field after being a tech, I guess you're a tech lawyer still?
Yeah, I still work in law and I do a lot of technology contracts, but I think I always for a really long time wanted to be a writer. I think after college I was just like, how do I, make a living with this and stuff like that. And that was kind of what initially got me going down the legal path. And then, but I was just always kind of writing on the side. And then about, let's see, this is 6 or 7 years ago, I was like, I've been reading journalistic outlets, I just started pitching stories. It's freelance journalism of, something that I've researched online, and, and began doing the journalism. And I had gotten really into covering Wikipedia as a site from a journalistic perspective. I think a lot of full-time journalists were focused on Facebook and Twitter at the time, but I just thought Wikipedia was so interesting. And then eventually in my book, that became the subject of my novel, just an internet encyclopedia and all the drama that takes place behind the scenes.
What can you share about the insight you found out?
Oh yeah, I think that these editors are just such characters, right? When they edit or delete a change on a site like Wikipedia, their voice really comes through. And even though we can all edit Wikipedia or get involved in kind of these internet fact debates, I think very few of us choose to do so. And so that kind of leaves, like I said, some interesting characters, and it actually gives them a lot of power over how information is presented on a site like Wikipedia.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because also, I'm not sure if this is correct, but can people contribute to Wikipedia as well? And then is that where the editors would come in? Or am I?
For sure, for sure. Yeah, anybody can edit, get started editing Wikipedia. I think that if it's a really popular article and you put something wrong, it's probably going to get removed pretty quickly because there are a lot of eyes watching it. And, they're always looking for new accounts and kind of saying, hey, is this new account following the rules? Like, are they citing a proper source? Are they, not just like vandalizing things? And I think compared to when I was growing up in college, where it was like a free for all, it's a lot more, a lot more eyes on it these days. I've talked to a lot of doctors who are like, okay, well, I cover this particular disease. I'm going to make sure that disease is well represented and well described on Wikipedia, because they care about it.
Well, that's amazing. That I guess so much goes on behind the scenes, like you were saying. Can you also maybe just talk about how this became your inspiration for your novel?
Yeah, for sure. I think that I was on a business trip in New York, and like we've been talking, I'm from Texas, Dallas area, so not College Station or Austin, but Texas isn't known for having a lot of public transportation. And I was in New York, and I was just remember thinking, I was like, when was the subway built? I didn't have a very good sense of like when it was actually built. So I was reading about the subway on Wikipedia, and this is before I got started covering it as a journalist. And I looked behind the scenes. The Wikipedia articles about the subway and all the different stations are really good. They're really high quality. You could tell someone or a group of people is spending a lot of time. And I looked behind the scenes, and I saw there were two main usernames that were most active, making changes and adding to the content. And I reached out to them, and it ended up being a high school senior and a college freshman. So not like kind of like the older subject matter expert I was thinking. It was like kind of teenagers who are writing this information that like millions of people were reading. And so that kind of was my inspiration. It was like, when you have facts online, who's curating them, who's behind the facts, and what's their personality.
Also, this might be a random question, but do these people who contribute get paid?
No, totally volunteers. I think there's
That's
maybe a
what I thought.
very small amount, small amount who might work for a university, so it kind of goes with their university job. But I'd say for the most part, they're all doing it just because they care about the project and care about the representation of facts on the site. So kind of a labor of love,
Absolutely.
really. Yeah.
Yes. So Russell is also a lawyer who's an author, so I'm
Uh-huh.
sure he has some great questions for you as well.
Well, I do have a question. I didn't mean
Yeah.
to interrupt, Valerie, but I couldn't
No.
stand it to not ask it this because it erupted in. So you write articles, you've written a novel, and you're a legal writer too, because you
Yeah.
have to write contracts, etc. So how do you keep? Those are three different styles. How do you keep them separate? Do you catch yourself ever writing in your novel with legalese or the opposite?
Yeah. It's a good question. There is this poet, Wallace Stevens, who is a lawyer, and he back in the day said that he had a briefcase and he kept like all of his poetry on one side and all of his creative writing, or sorry, all of his contractual writing on the other side. Is like, I kind of feel like I have to do that too, create some distance, I don't know if it will work on camera, but I've got my work desk there and I've got my writing desk there. So I kind of do have two different workplaces, you know, and I do a lot more of my fiction writing. I tend to do write it with pen and paper because I think, at least in the initial drafts, because I think that gets me a little bit more creative than maybe my contractual writing. And you know, sometimes I use different fonts. I use Garamond for my fiction, as opposed to Times. Every, you know, contract document is Times New Roman. So I think you just have to get in a different brain space. And I tell people sometimes when I'm writing fiction, I you know, I'm trying to like explore the story and kind of get in a mode. So I sometimes do a warm up of I read fiction for about 10 or 15 minutes. I set a timer, you know, someone else's fiction, and it's kind of a good tune up. Like if it's a suspense scene I'm writing, I might read a real suspenseful scene in a novel. And so I think it gets me in a different headspace. And then what else? I just think lastly, I try to do my creative stuff in the morning before the job starts, because once the emails and the contracts start rolling through, I've switched brains. So that's, I don't know. I'm still working on it myself, but that's the way I'm thinking about it.
I have one more question, then I'll give it
Yeah.
back to Valerie. So, do you have attorneys asking you why you write fiction? Do you have puzzled people bewildered why you do it?
I did. Yeah, because actually I had someone, because I'd written about Wikipedia for such a long time, they were saying you should do a nonfiction book on Wikipedia. But I think that I just sort of I mean, they're like, to tell the truth about Wikipedia, there are like 1,000 main contributors, and I just wanted to like boil the story down to its essence and kind of. There's different things you can do in fiction, and I think the main thing is you can get inside people's heads and you can show interiority and do that. And I feel like I, especially with, you know, I'll just say, you know, a lot of my friends who are men, they're like, well, I only read nonfiction. I don't read fiction. And I always am like trumpeting the virtues of fiction. I think that you can get, yeah, you can get, just have like a much more emotionally resonant story sometimes. You know, there's just a lot you can do. And I think they're both valuable in different ways. But I'm always encouraging people that fiction actually has a lot of value in their lives. So.
Yes, I got you. All right. So, how did you turn your journalistic writing? How did you pivot into the, I guess, the literary world?
Yeah, so I had this idea of writing a novel that was inspired by Wikipedia, kind of treating it as a suspense novel with all the stakes. And so I had, you know, and actually I started this on February 2020, and I didn't know what the big conflict would be. And then March of 2020 happened. And I was like, okay, the pandemic could bring all these characters around the world together, you know, both in real life and in my novel. And so I started writing the draft. It took about, you know, from February to October of that year, so 8 months to do that just really rough first draft. And then this company, Inkshares, was having a contest where you could kind of put your work up and get feedback from people, and it leads to a publication deal. And I knew that, you know, since I hadn't done that much fiction writing before, I published a number of short stories, but I hadn't done all that much fiction writing. I thought, you know, that might be a good opportunity, and at the very least, I could get some feedback. And they ended up having like a top 3 winners. I was number 2 out of 3, and got the publication deal. And but it was a really long process after that. I remember thinking, oh, I got the contract, here it goes. But no, they had a lot of ideas on how to make the story better. I think that I kind of originally wrote it as like a Game of Thrones with like a ton of different characters, and you know, it's a better story with 4 main characters or 4 main viewpoint characters. And so kind of that was sort of an apprenticeship of like just making it a better story and revising it, you know, from 2021 to 2024 when it just recently came out.
Exactly. Yes, when I do school presentations too, they're like, "Well, how long does it take to make a book?" And we're like, "Don't ever ask an author a question like that. It's
That's
a
right.
loaded
Yeah, yeah.
gun because you're just like, there's never a set answer." So
Yeah.
I just go, "It's a very long time. It's a very
It's a
long
long
time
time.
because
Yeah.
just, you know." But how do you feel? Can you just share a little bit about the plot background of it?
Yeah, sure. The logline is that it's a thriller inspired by Wikipedia, and it
Mhm,
has themes like misinformation and geopolitics and sort of the censorship of
mhm,
Wikipedia type sites in places like China. And I have 4 main characters. One is a investigative journalist who's trying to get to the bottom of what's happening in the site. The other is a young high school contributor who's just really into making sure that the site doesn't have misinformation. Then there's he thinks of himself as an old timer, someone who's been contributing for a really long time and just is really concerned about the quality of the project. And then lastly, we have someone who's in China, and he is a hired gun contributor. He actually, for wealthy people and corporations, he adjusts their internet page for a price. And so he has a really interesting arc over the course of the story.
It sounds intriguing. How about, did you have any, I guess I feel like you had some inspiration, like you were talking about the high school person and this and that, but what about your other characters? Where did the inspiration for those come from?
Right. Yeah. Well, like like Russell, I'm still working as an attorney, but I do have a lot of people who are full-time journalists, and so I think that the investigative journalist was her name's Morgan Wentworth, and she's inspired in part by actual full-time journalists that I know, and I was thinking a lot about like the economic situation for a lot of these journalists, kind of how they're pitching stories, and there's a lot of layoffs in that industry, so that was an inspiration, and I did talk at one point to someone who was working in China as a paid contributor. And I was thinking, you are really bold and really, taking risks, because that person is, doing something that's not allowed by the site's terms of use, but also in China, they have blocked Wikipedia since 2019. They actually blocked it on the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. So it's just really risky to be, involved on the internet like he is. So I did have some real life inspiration, and I was thinking, okay, I've got a glimpse into these characters. How can I, make them into a compelling story?
Yes. So your character development just evolved from your imagination.
I think so. Actually, I told someone, if I knew a lot about a real life person, I don't think I can make him a character. But if I have like a glimpse of like, okay, this is this, I think that's enough. And then your I don't know, your subconscious or your fiction brain just starts working on the character over the
Absolutely.
course of years.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And then how about so do all these four characters are their stories independent of each other in your story, or are they crossing paths?
They cross paths. I mean, originally they're crossing paths on the internet, and I think that one of the things that you try to do, especially if it's like a TV show, is you have to have your characters come into the same room. So I had to use some sort of like novelistic invention to get these sort of internet frenemies to to come and to be in the same place. And then yeah, that's the intersection of the stories is, I think, one of the things that the reader is looking forward to, and hopefully is one of the
Mhm.
highlights. Yeah,
Yeah, the denouement, right? Right.
that's right.
Russell, I think
Yeah.
you had some questions,
I
maybe.
do have a do you have do you go into the book technically how the Chinese contributor circumvents the regulations in China?
Yeah, I do. So and this is inspired by real life or like the nonfiction, but they use what's called a virtual private network, VPN, to kind of position
That's what I
themselves.
used in China.
That's what you use. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to do it. And I think real life Wikipedia, are they kind of are worried about VPNs. They don't want people editing from VPN. They want to know where people are editing from. But for purposes of the story, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have this person be using the VPN and kind of circumventing the policies. Yeah.
In fact, I was very surprised how easy it was to avoid or circumvent Chinese regulations when I was over there. But I was able to get on Facebook and everything from there because it said I was in Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's like a lot of people from China, when they're accessing, they look like they're in Chicago, and they just picked a city in the middle of the country, for their VPN. One thing I think is a little nervous about it is, yeah, a lot of people in China, Americans and others who are visiting, use the VPN. But if the Chinese government wants to, since it's still a law in the books, they can apply the law and come after you. It's an uneven application of the law. Usually when they don't like you, for political reasons, they come after you.
So, can I ask another question, Valerie? So, I have a question for you because we were talking about fiction. What are you reading right now?
Yeah, I've been reading. It's called the Dublin Murder series, and it's let's see, Tana French, and I just finished the first one, which is called In the Woods. And but one reason I'm reading it is because I like my next book to be a murder mystery. So I'm kind of just making sure that I've got good examples, but I wanted some good first person narration. And then another book that I'm reading, because I'm also looking at some historical fiction, is called Fellow Travelers. And they made it into a TV series, but I just wanted to see how they kind of did the incorporation of historical details. And yeah, that's by this guy, Thomas Mallon. And it's I'm enjoying it so far.
So, have you tried any Dostoevsky, which
That's
is
a
my
good
favorite
question.
murder
Yeah.
thrillers?
No, what would that be? Crime and Punishment, or yeah,
Crime and Punishment, exactly.
that's a good recommendation. No, that's a good idea.
I read it every year
That's a
to
great idea. Yeah.
ground myself. So, Valerie, let me hand it back to you. I'm sorry, Stephen
No,
is
no,
just
no.
so compelling.
No, Russell, wait, hold on before you mute yourself. Can you tell us why you read Crime and Punishment every year are you doing it from the author perspective or the lawyer perspective or both to combine the storytelling aspects or what's going on with that?
It's a weird answer. Dostoevsky was the answer to Nietzsche's God is Dead. He
Mm-hmm.
wrote he wrote in fiction answering what Nietzsche wrote philosophically. And I read both every year because it's like the ultimate struggle of the 20th century that was taking place in the 19th century. And also, I love great literature. When people ask me, Stephen, why do I read fiction? Why do I write fiction?
Mm-hmm.
My answer is always because it makes you smarter. Fiction makes
Yeah.
you smarter. Great
Yeah.
fiction makes you smarter.
Right. Yeah, and I think like information is, we can find it everywhere, but where do you find wisdom, right? And I think that that's what you're getting at with smarter. It's like wisdom. Yeah.
I guess, Stephen, in your book, are we learning new things about Wikipedia that maybe we didn't know before, or just is this not just like a go-to page for information, or what are we learning about maybe the whole background of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I call it infopendium in the book. Whether it's that particular site or another, I just think that people need to realize that, the process of selecting facts it doesn't just happen. There are people who are contributing and they're participating. And, I have a character who, at one point maybe he'd be skipping Dostoevsky, but actually he's skipping high school for this one day because something's really important is going on the site and he's running for admin and he misses his Shakespeare class. And I do think that especially in this younger generation, Gen Z, they're saying, hey, there are a lot of real life issues with misinformation and stuff like that going on. And they're kind of making these important decisions. You worry about the effect that it has on the future. And so I think that, a lot of or a number of my characters are really into the project and making sure that the facts are presented correctly online. And I think that that's kind of true to life. There are a lot of people who really care about the accuracy of the information that's available.
I love that you did use that as a springboard to create your setting, and then your characters are delving into all that from different perspectives. How about do you believe or do you think that in this election year, this is even like more important to know that the misinformation could be construed so easily, whereas, people are trying to get the facts out there as your characters are trying to do.
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, I think one of the things I wrote about recently is, there was the felony conviction for Donald Trump, and it's a question of where does that go on his Wikipedia page? And you can imagine someone saying it should be in the first sentence, and you should imagine someone saying it should be buried. And so you need to have, I think the Wikipedia editors, after a consensus, after looking at how it's happened with other politicians around the world, decided that goes in the second sentence. And kind of on the other side with Kamala Harris, it was the question about her role with the border czar. That wasn't her official title. No, she never had that title or anything like that. But it was a role that she had, in border type policies. And so it was, how does that get presented in the page? And one thing I'd like people to know is it's not just like political tribal as people think. I think there are a lot of people who actually really do care about presenting the information neutrally on an encyclopedia. And of course, there are a lot of people on the other side who are just, really unobjective. But I think a lot of people on the project and in life probably generally are trying to aim for neutrality.
What is the biggest takeaway you hope people get from reading your story?
Right. Well, I think that there are a number. Well, while anyone can edit Wikipedia, only a few thousand people really choose to do so. As a much smaller subset that chooses to, and I think that I mean we all see that, right? And when I used to write articles for Slate about it, maybe I'd write an article and it'd be about a big controversy on Wikipedia, and maybe like 30,000-40,000 people would visit that page, read the article, but only like 24 people behind the scenes would actually be involved in it. And that's just like life. I think there are a lot of people who aren't stepping up and getting involved. So maybe some people will decide, hey, this is actually really important because Wikipedia feeds Google, AI, everybody, and they'll get involved. Or at the very least, they'll know, hey, there's a human story behind this, the story of people who are involved in it. And then, lastly, I'd say, the New York Times just released this list of the top 100 novels of the 21st century. And what's strange to me about it is like only like one or two of them really involve the internet. And I was like, if there's ever going to be a novel about the internet, it should be like now, this century, And I think that a lot of our popular fiction isn't really covering technology and these issues that we have day to day. And so I'm eager to get a story out there. Yeah, go ahead, Russell.
I have a question. Question.
Yeah.
So, the CEO of the internet channel Telegram, is that it?
Yes.
Was arrested in Paris, Dugan.
Right.
This weekend. Have you covered that? Have you looked into that? Are you familiar with that? What's your opinion?
Not too familiar, but I did have, so he's Telegram, and the issue is that the messages are, encrypted, right? And some of the governmental entities are saying, hey, it shouldn't be encrypted, for either from a free speech reason, or they're saying, well, what if it's, trading Bitcoin like, criminals and stuff like that, right? So that's the argument that France is making. But in my book, I have Telegraph instead of Telegram. That is the messenger application that's being used. And what I want the reader to think about is, are these things ever fully encrypted? I mean, especially in a country like China, if you have a database there, it may not be as encrypted as people think. And so that's the way I cover it in the book, not specifically with this French or this guy who's being arrested in France, but how it plays out, from an encryption standpoint around the world.
Okay, that was my only question. I was dying to ask that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
I guess, can you tell us where we can find your book, please?
Yeah, what's available wherever books are sold. It's in a lot of Barnes and Nobles right now. One of my favorite things is when people take a picture and it's like, oh, I found it, and so that's neat. I'm trying to get it in more indie bookstores, because we'd like to do that. And you can get it, of course, on Amazon and bookshop.org and things like that. And I've got the book here if anyone's looking for the cover. No, it's just been really, it's like a lifelong dream of mine to like go into a bookshop and see it, and that's happened a few times. So I've been really happy in the past 2 weeks since the book came out.
Yes, I don't blame you. It's a very great feeling. It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
And how about you said you're working on a new novel already?
I am. Yeah. I think I've got kind of two different things. I got a nonfiction book. I'm, sort of like some of Russell's questions about, how can you trust and, certain information and stuff like that. And it's whether you can. And so I'm calling it it's like a diet of information. How can you what are better and worse sources of information? So that's like a nonfiction book. And then in the fiction side, I used to work at the Federal Reserve, and inflation, all of these things are like very much on people's minds right now. And I thought kind of an inside the Fed murder mystery novel would be really fun. That's what I'm doing research by reading the Dublin murder mysteries. But it might be a couple years before that comes out. But Murder at the Fed someday, we'll see. Yeah.
Sounds great to me. Sounds great. Russell, did you have any other comments?
Well, sometimes when we finish, Aimee got me started doing this. I do podcasts too. I have a book coming out too, Stephen. And I get some of the weirdest questions. And since you've been on this, I'm sure you've got some weird questions. One weird question that I want to ask you that I was asked, a little bit surprised, and I shocked them back by my answer. So you're having dinner. You can have 3 authors at the dinner, live or dead. Who do you pick?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was the way I first reacted too, Steve.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
really
weird.
tough.
What's it have to do with my book or me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think it's
something
supposed to
to do.
reflect your personality.
Yes, well, I
Sure.
shot
Sure.
the hell out of them. While
Right.
Steven's
Right.
thinking of it, what's your answer,
Yeah.
Valerie?
Oh,
Valerie, what
we
would
have.
your answer be?
Oh, my answer. Oh, okay. Hold on. I would probably choose some of my favorite authors just in general, and it's usually the whole same genre, like Kristen Hanna, Paula Hawkins. I love horror novelists like Grady Hendrix, Stephen Graham Jones. Just I'm all over the place,
So
really,
you're
and
you're right. Your dinner's full of people that are actually alive.
yeah, okay. If I had to, I don't know if I'd go back in time. I'd have to really think about that. I'm just thinking what's on my.
Steven has an answer now. You can
I
see it
figured
on
it
his
out. I
face.
figured it out. Well,
Yeah,
I got.
it's
I
like you're readable like Aimee. You know, Aimee
yeah.
has no poker face. At least at the
Hey,
beginning of
The
the podcast, you have no poker face, Steven. What's
well,
your answer?
I got to cheat because the bookshelf is right here, so I could kind of just scan. I think
nice.
I really like George Eliot's and Middlemarch, and if I, like Russell reads Crime and Punishment every year, I might start reading Middlemarch every year because although it's a long one, so I've just got really into that in college, like studying the Victorian novelists, and she was so smart, writing under a pen name and all and the way the stories converge together. So her. Dickens, who another one I had in college, just got really into, and I feel like he'd bring a lot of fun to the party. Just a
Yeah,
really
he'd
good
make a
public
mess of
speaker.
your table.
That's right, yeah, and he's a walker and everything like that. And who else? And then this guy, David Graeber. Does anyone know him? He's a nonfiction writer, but he passed away recently. So he did this book, Bullshit Jobs, and but he just does a ton of nonfiction books that are really good. And he just died way too soon, and he's hilarious. So I think that'd be my mix. Yeah.
Yeah,
Aimee,
yeah.
before we go, what's your answer?
Mine are all going to be alive. I don't know if it's that entertaining for you or not, but I would have Sophie Avery, who's written books that I enjoy reading. Another one would be J.D. Robb, which is Nora Roberts and her crime series that Dina got me in on, that I'm currently behind in, but reading. And then one book that I read every year, and it's no surprise to Russell. I read Roger Leslie's book every year, and it's like My Last Day is the title of his book. It's something like that. I don't have it by me. My head's fuzzy
Is it
from all
my
my
first last day or something
yeah,
like that?
my first last year is what it is. And it
Yes.
helps set my mindset for the entire year and appreciating everything that happens within that year. So those would be the ones that I have. I'm more kind of down that avenue of like your intentions and setting them up and the power of your mind. So that's more who I would have. Mine are all alive. So it's not
That's
as
a
entertaining.
stoic concept.
Yeah, it's not as entertaining, for sure. But I would love to have all of them together at the table. I bet that conversation would be interesting because they're all different genres. So it would be a fun
I think that's
time.
the whole thing. All of us enjoy so many different genres. It's hard to really choose. If I went back to my bookshelf way in the back of my house, I'd be like, oh, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. That's why it's just you can't choose. It's like choosing your favorite child.
Hey, on days I know which one is mine. On certain days I know which child is my favorite. On certain days, it's just we're being honest for sure. But no, so Stephen, I'm glad that technology was on our side and you got to join and we could have this conversation. Your book sounds very interesting to me, so I have it in my Amazon cart, so I'm going to go on over and get it for sure. But thank you for taking time out. And finessing with technology to be on and to come and talk with us this morning. It's been a really fun conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Aimee, Valerie, Russell. I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, we hope that you all have a fantastic Monday. Stay dry if you're down here in the south part of Texas, or if you're where Russell is, which we just hate. Stay warm because he's in the 60s.
It's
okay?
cool here.
Yeah. It's like 105 here. Okay. So stay warm or dry or wherever you're at. We hope you have a great Monday and a great rest of your week. But until next Monday, everybody, bye for now.